A rolls. I'll get B.
I got it. I'm gonna hang out over here.
Okay. Sound speed.
B rolls.
Okay.
All right. This is Wilco. Interview. Marker.
Boy. Well, I always do this before we roll, but I didn't. So we'll do that now. Sometimes being in front of a camera is nerve-wracking. So as best to your ability, you can ignore it and just focus on me and conversation. And also, there's just trust us, not the equipment. I think that's the biggest thing. People get like all like there's so much stuff and it feels a little claustrophobic and whatever, but we have set something really beautiful.
Thank you.
And paints you guys in the best light that we possibly can. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just want, any stress or anxiety that you have, let it fade. As to the best of your ability.
I just let it fade.
Oh, okay, cool.
Let it.
With this doc, let's dream a little bit. What do you hope we can accomplish, or hope someone's takeaway might be from seeing your story and seeing the way that our society, the hidden parts of our society is?
Well, I think my biggest takeaway would probably be that I would like for it to bring about change. That it would, somebody who sees it would have the ability, whether it be legislatively or whatever, to be able to make changes to keep our criminal justice system from being weaponized the way it is, against people, and this would happen to somebody else more than anything. It's always been about the fact that I don't want this to happen to somebody else. Hard decisions that I had to make along the way, and I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't really have any enemies, but I don't wish it upon them.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, the same. Wouldn't want this to happen to anybody, but just to be more aware of the fact that this is happening to so many people. To bring awareness about that you feel like you're blindsided when you're going through it, and for the people that are suffering, and that this could be for them too, that there's hope, and not to give up, because I'd hate to think how many people have just given up on ever getting justice.
Yeah. I'll do my best to make good facial acknowledgments of the things you're saying. I'm going to be largely silent because this is me speaking. I'm probably not going to be on camera or say anything in this talk. It'll just be, this is what I'm saying. Also, if I ask a question, this is another piece that I normally do before. Not that you guys did anything wrong. That was perfect. For future questions, it might be reframe the question as a statement. So, like if I ask, like, what did you eat for breakfast? You don't just say cereal, because they're not going to hear me. And so,
Okay.
for breakfast, I ate. And also, I think it's helpful for audiences to enter into a bit of a story. So I'll try to frame the questions in ways that it lends itself to telling a little bit of a story or elaborating on things a little bit more.
Okay.
Don't feel like you have to be concise or anything like that. You can just flow. We have cards, we have batteries, we have all the time in the world.
Okay.
This is a very, very loose schedule that we have. So.
Well, when I start talking, sometimes I just go blank.
Yeah.
So I'll try not to do that, but it might be a problem.
It won't be a problem. If you ever go blank and you need to just collect your thoughts, we can talk through them, and then once you have them, then you can just say them to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, we're in this together.
Yes.
Yeah. On the you both mentioned change. You both mentioned helping other people. With when you're going through this tumultuous journey, I can only imagine the isolation that you feel like you're alone in this. That's part of my reason for creating it, is to give other people the chance to see, this isn't just a me thing. I wasn't just singled out. This is a societal thing that is happening. So I don't know if you want to speak to that kind of isolation, or if you guys felt that, or any kind of internal feelings that you had, maybe within that first couple years of the conviction, thinking about, what do we do? So you could start by, within the first couple years, that those first couple years would be a good starter into that.
Yeah, well, the first couple of years were pretty tough. Hard to grasp what had happened and how things had really changed when I took the plea in '93. To be a registered sex offender, just what I was told in court anyway, just meant that the police would have a record of it, but that the public wouldn't. And so, I felt some relief in that, and gave me some solace in the fact that at least I won't be an embarrassment to my family. And, I don't plan on ever, talking to another police officer again. So I didn't really, that didn't worry me. But the very next year, 94, 95, 96 really got bad, where, there's websites and there's postcards that are going out to your neighbors. I mean, it was, so the isolation was really, we didn't talk about it a whole lot between us. But I felt, I felt ashamed for taking the plea. I didn't feel like I had a choice. I feel like I needed to be there for Amy and my boys, and who were, 3 and 5 at the time, and I didn't feel like I had an option in that situation. But as time went on and on and on, and things got worse and worse with the sex offender registration and all the different things that it required, and then the way I was treated in general public by churches and what have you, I felt very, very alone and an outcast. It was hard. My greatest solace was coming to know the Lord 6 months afterwards, because without that, I don't know that I would have been able to survive it. I think it was difficult. And so, but with that, you know, and we leaned on each other a lot. You know, I've you know, been with Amy for, you know, since we were 11 and 12 years old. And so I've, you know, I rested in the fact that at least I still have her and that she loves me, and I got two beautiful boys, and we might live alone and not have a whole lot of friends because of this, but it drew us tighter as a family. And so, but yeah, it was difficult. The first few years were very hard to deal with. The difference in my life, how it changed overnight. I mean, changed overnight. Everything changed. I was a successful manager of an auto parts store, and I went to, you know, being an unemployed, can't find work, nobody wants to talk to me guy, you know. And I'm an extrovert, so, you know, I want everybody to talk to me. Yeah, so it was hard, but.
Yeah. Do you have any input on that?
Well, the first 2 years after the conviction, yeah, it was like we made our own little bubble, if you will. Yeah, I don't think that we, you know, we weren't trying to exclude ourselves from people. We wanted to be, you know, just our normal selves, but just to protect you boys from, you know, mean people. And they just didn't know, you know, and that's part of wanting to do this also is you never know what somebody is going through. And, sorry.
It creates compassion, doesn't it,
Yeah, it
for
does.
people? Yeah.
But we wanted to protect y'all. Um, we wanted to protect us as a couple, and, you know, just trying to, you know, make a living. That's why we started the janitorial business. And that was something that we took refuge in because a lot of times we'd clean at night and we wouldn't have to deal with people, you know.
And we
But
were together.
we were together and we had fun, and it ended up teaching y'all some good work ethic. But I hope it taught y'all love from us. So, but that's how I picture, you know, thinking back at those first few years, just, you know, survival, clinging to each other, and trying to figure out how in the world did this happen. You know, when you've done nothing wrong, how does this happen to somebody? And like you said earlier, you know, it would have been helpful if we had known that this was happening to other people. But we felt like we were singled out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just didn't make sense.
I'm gonna change gears. This was fantastic. What do you like most about Dad as it relates to you?
Oh, wow. He, he always puts me first. And I don't always deserve it. I don't deserve it. I never deserve it. But
I think
he always puts me first. And then he puts our kiddos next. But he puts God above everything. And I love that about him, and you're just selfless is what you are.
Um, what do you like most about him as it relates to other people?
Mm,
And you can frame this as, I like
okay.
this and
I like this about Troy.
what I like about Troy.
Okay.
In relation to others.
What, yeah, what I like about Troy in relation to other people is he's always an encourager. Once he gets to know somebody, and he will try to, know them right away, find out their interest, and then it's all about, you can just like see his brain going, how can I encourage this person in this area? And he'll do it like behind the scenes. Like, it's amazing. And it's a gift. I know that.
Um, that was great. So when do you feel? Just a big breath. Okay. All right. When did you guys actually start talking about this? When did you actually discuss? Because you mentioned we didn't really talk about it. We just kind of went through it. When
Yeah.
did you start actually talking together about the situation? Was there ever a moment where you're like, we got to figure out a game plan, or, well, debriefing over what happened or anything like that?
I don't know. I don't know that we necessarily did we need to sit down and talk about this. My response to, anything that happened with other people was always to, they don't have any idea. They don't know, they don't know what they're doing as far as, how they're treating us, and they don't know what they're missing out on in getting to know me and my family. And so, I think we may have talked about it a few times, but most of the time it was, what do we need to do to protect, the boys? What do we need to do to protect you and I and our business and our home? And so, there was some tough stuff that happened from people, and that required us to sit down and go, okay, we're gonna need to address this, so this is gonna get ugly, you know. So where are we moving to? Yeah.
Do you want to share one of those times?
Well, we'd moved back to Victoria because Amy's mama was sick, and that was a very difficult time for Amy and for us. Just in knowing that mama was ill, and we were worried about her. But then a neighbor next door, who I had befriended and actually played golf with, I guess his wife found out, or he found out. And the next thing I know, they're come over the house and told us if we don't move by Friday, they're going to be picketing our front yard with people until we move. And so that meant standing out in front of our house and holding signs about, who we were and all the stuff that that the internet said about us. And so, we were cleaning for a lady who was kind enough to give us a new place to live. And so we had to pick up and move. And those were really hard times for me, because I again felt, that, and it's a weird feeling, because it's not shame in the sense that I'm guilty of something. It's maybe I don't know. I kept thinking to myself, maybe I didn't fight hard enough. Maybe I should have just took this to court and risked being in jail. And then, Amy wouldn't have to deal with the shame of a neighbor coming over saying, we're going to picket your house and, all of that. But we sat down and talked about it. And Amy was always very supportive of whatever we're going to do. And whatever you think we need to do, I'm with you. I'll start packing tonight, kind of attitude, and we were always in it together. Whatever was happening to us, neither one of us, I never felt like she was mad at me for taking the plea. I never felt like she was angry that we were in that situation. I think she was disappointed in people and how they treat others. But
And disappointed that it happened to you. Yeah.
yeah, but it was happening to us as a family,
Yeah.
and it was affecting us. And so in that particular situation, that was heartbreaking. That I thought I'd found a friend. And we had a like interest in playing golf, and although I wasn't good at it, I loved being out there first thing in the morning, and I thought, this is great. I'll have a friend in town to do something with. And then the tides turned, I think, just a couple of days after we played our first game of golf, and we had a great time out there. Talked about marriage and talked about his relationship with his spouse, and they were going through some difficult stuff. And so, and for whatever reason, God's always put us in a position to love on hurting people. And so, I felt like I had an opportunity to minister to him and care about his situation and show compassion for, some bad decisions that he had made, but yet still we're people and we all make bad decisions. So, let's, get over it. But it was heartbreaking to have that happen to us. And, it's happened more than once. We've dealt with that in churches and that was, those things are really hard to deal with. And the more it happened, I think the more resilient we got, of just kind of letting it roll off our back. Like, well, and we'll just move on. We'll find somewhere else to worship, or we'll, whatever the case might have been. But, that's the reason we moved all the way out to Rockdale, on 5 acres away from people, so that, we didn't really have to deal with a neighbor next door who got angry with us. And if they did, they were 5 acres away. So leave me alone. But anyway, yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, I found out in reading the file from your lawyer that you got physically assaulted.
In the front yard of the house, yeah.
Is this the same?
No,
Okay.
that's a different incident.
I don't know anything about that.
Right. I don't really know a whole lot about it either. He came across the street, all ready to fight for whatever reason, and said something about his wife, that supposedly I was looking at his wife at the convenience store. Now, in the end of all of that, well, it's a long story, but yes, he assaulted me in the front yard. I made a smart aleck remark, and I shouldn't have, because I said something like, why would I look at your wife? Have you seen mine? And I said that to my friend next to me, and I know it was, but I was upset that he was coming bowing up to me like that. And then when he hit me, I stood back for a second like I'm going to fight you, and then realized that this will be a train going way south for Troy. And so I just went inside the house and called the police. And they went over and talked to him and ended up finding drugs in his truck, and he got arrested and all that. And then to make the finish the story, because I think it's really important, we moved the next street over like 2 or 3 months later. And it wasn't 6 months later, he moved on that same street 4 or 5 houses down from us. So every morning he would leave in his truck when Mom and I were out front at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning having coffee while you guys were still asleep. And he would drive by and look at me. And there came a point where I felt God nudge on my heart that I was supposed to go over and just talk to him. So I went over and knocked on his door and said, I don't really know what exactly happened with us. And he goes, dude, it was my fault. I heard about what happened, and I just got mad, and I was drinking, and I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. And we patched up, played a game of pool in his garage, and, and we didn't hang out, but, I think it was all just the fact that he had heard about what had happened, or what I was accused of, and he wanted to, you know, he wanted to pick a fight with somebody, I guess. So
I think it's funny. I think, I mean, yeah, but
I was a young believer at the time, just so for my
it's a
defense.
great comeback.
I would not recommend saying that, but in my defense, I was a young believer. I didn't know.
Okay. Let's change gears. I'm trying to, if you haven't noticed, bit of a roller coaster. We're gonna go low and high. We're not gonna stay in the lows. Lows and highs are the heartbeats of life. So, you've mentioned just in this short time the opportunities, or at lunch, you mentioned the opportunities that we had, and even though we didn't have much, people were generous with us, and there were certainly kind people that were nice to our family, and it's a well, yeah, this dovetails into the next question, but and it's a bit of a leading question, sorry, Your Honor, but do you feel like the lows that you guys had as a family made those instances of kindness radiate that much brighter or give more hope to you? Whereas if you would have had a normal life, you probably would have overlooked a lot of those instances of people being nice or kind to the family.
Yeah, I think the lows in life that we dealt with made the kind words and the kind gestures, with a huge light on them for us. It was a saving grace, if you will. And so, yeah, when we found somebody who cared about us and were kind to us and non-judgmental, our pastor, for example, Randy Felshaw, he knew, within 3 months of us getting saved, I sat down with him and shared everything that I was not guilty of the crime, but this is what I was accused of. This is what they have me as a sex offender, and I need you to know that, and his attitude, one of the first things he told me is, Troy, nobody needs to know this, so you don't need to repeat it to anybody. You don't need to do that. You know that there are limitations of where you can work within the ministry of a church. So you'll never work in the children's ministry, not because you were guilty of anything, but because we want to avoid the appearance of any guilt. We don't want anybody to throw another stone at you. Amen. So we're going to stay clear of that area. But you don't need to be telling people this. I understand you telling me, but you don't need to go telling it. And that was probably some of the most sound advice that I got early on that helped me deal with people when they found out through whatever research that they ended up doing. Because today people Google you. They hear your name, and if you're influential or if you're, too positive, too friendly, well, who's this guy? And then they see whatever they see and make an opinion based off of that. And we've had some churches who came against us because, how come you didn't come in and tell us right away? Because it wasn't any of your business, for one. And, my pastor always says, we're not here to gossip about your past. We're here to prophesy about your future. And so I didn't think it was any of your business. I don't work with your children. So, I didn't feel like it was anything you needed to know about. But having those kinds of people in your life that see past even a mistake. I mean, even and there were people that I even told, hey, don't look at it as to whether or not I was guilty or innocent. Okay, let's don't even go there. I've been found guilty of it. Okay, I confessed to or pled guilty to it. So you can treat me as if you think I'm guilty. I'm okay with you doing that. So guard me and protect me. So that means that you keep children from coming over and, as they do sometimes in church, to, jump up in your lap or hug your leg or whatever, just, keep me protected. I don't go into a room where kids are at. I don't minister to children. I don't, and now you know why I don't do that, because you Googled me and found me out, and that's okay. But, I'm not going to defend myself. There were a lot of people, well, tell me exactly what happened and why did, and they wanted to get all into that stuff. And that was before we ever found the evidence that the prosecution hid. And my result was that I could either sit here all day long and tell you I didn't do it, or I could just simply tell you, look, it was first off, it was years ago, it was pre-Christ. I didn't do it, but if you want to treat me as if you think I did, I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. But then there were other people who found out, and they were like, I don't have any idea if you're guilty or not, but I know the man that I've met today. I know the man that I've come to know, and I have a lot of respect for that man. So you just keep being you, and you don't worry about what people are saying about your past, and I'll defend you. So, we had that in a particular church where the pastor told me I had to stand up in front of the whole congregation and tell everybody that I was a registered sex offender. And if I didn't do that, then I couldn't attend his church anymore. And of course, at that time, I think you and your brother were on the worship team. So I didn't want to not be there and watch you play drums and sing and all that. And so I stood up and did that. And to my amazement, there were a couple of men who stood up and said, hey, I got a 5-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son, and he can babysit my kids anytime he wants to. I have total respect for the man. I don't have any question about his, of course, I never did babysit his kids. That wasn't the point. But the point was that he loved me. And those types of relationships were hard to come by. But when we found them, those were the highs. Those were the people that we kind of clinged to, loved on, clung to. Yeah. So it's one of those, it's that English. That's Amy's forte. But,
Yeah. Do you have a story of a time where someone treated our family with kindness? What's the peak for you, if you remember one?
Well, I'd have to say, my mother and family, and especially my sister, knew about what we were going through and the accusation, and their love for us never faltered, and their support. And as taboo as the conviction, the accusation was, that can be, that's so sensitive to so many people. But, they were always so loving and kind and protective of us. So, just as we tried to, protect our family, our little family, as far as who knew, and just to be, a little more reclusive, but they were protective of us too, and didn't want to, have people talk about that, and tried to protect us. So they've always been very supportive, and my dad and mother put the money up for the, what do you call that?
The bail
The bail, and
and paid for the attorney.
and paid for the attorney's fees, and and so much of the fees that we had later on, they weren't aware of. I guess we'll get into that later, but when we found out about the exculpatory evidence and pursued that, we didn't tell a whole lot of people, and felt like we could, try to do the financing on our own, but we ended up, needing help when family members found out. They were eager to help as much as they could, wanting to get this, off of our backs and, put a stop to it. But, there's not really a stop to this type of injustice. But as far as the attorneys are concerned, I think that was very generous.
Well, and Mr. Chu was always supportive of us and
Yes.
helped with anything. When I first sought the attorney out for for getting off the registration, I'm sure we'll talk about that over time. But he was like, "Yep, I'll put down a retainer for that. I'll help you." So there's probably a handful, okay, maybe 3 that really stand out as people who interceded, because for years there we were $16,000 to $19,000 a year. I mean, so we didn't have much, but we had each other, and then every once in a while we had a family member or a friend who reached up and loved on us and sent us to Cancun.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought we'd go there. But.
Yeah. Do we need to check on
Yeah,
that?
we need some stuff.
Cool. Okay. Well,
Time for a water break. You guys have?
yeah. Yeah, do you guys need water, anything?
I'm okay. Did you find it?
I did.
See what I mean, Mason?
Oh, no, just pull.
I can't follow through with a good thought
You
like.
did great.
Okay.
We're not looking for perfect it's the beauty of editing.
Okay, good.
And you don't want it to be canned. You want it to be natural.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Allie. She's not being affected by this at all.
She's a natural.
Okay.
These things still looking good, right?
Yeah, we're looking good. Don't love the battery that I have on this recorder. Might
Put fresh ones in.
yeah.
Well, there's 3 things in here.
Bear. We'll run until it dies, and then we can put more in.
Yeah, you might just pop those headphones on here too, just to double check.
Yeah. Try to get out of the frame. Let me know whenever you're good.
Just the 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah. This is, it's been a really interesting, and this isn't about me at all. Well, a little bit about me, I guess. But it's been really fascinating and eye-opening for me to comb through the story, because even though I knew, there was a lot that I didn't know, and to put all those pieces together of why was it so amazing, or why would people just send us money in the mail sometimes? That was like, that happened multiple times, and I was just like, is this just, people do this? And probably why I like checking the mail. So yeah, it's been really, really cool. It's been interesting reflecting on it. I want to. You guys started talking about the exoneration. I don't really want to tell that story in this setting, but I would like to add some color to it. So, upon finding out about exculpatory evidence and all the shady stuff that happened with Ken Anderson and all that stuff, did it give you guys context, or at least a little bit more of an understanding of what happened, instead of this unknown for so long of like, what, why me, why us, why were they so gung-ho, all this? Did those puzzle pieces kind of make a fuller picture of, oh, I get it now? So you could answer that in terms of when we found out about Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When we found out about the exculpatory evidence, and then dove a little deeper into the actions of the Williamson County Prosecutor Office, from mid 80s, what they did to Michael Morton, what they did to me, and then reading the evidence that was exculpatory that was in my file. It did give us, I guess, context in the sense of that we, okay, all right, so this wasn't just against us. It wasn't that they singled me out. It was, this is apparently the status quo for them. This is what they do. If you get indicted, you're going to jail. They're going to get a conviction, and if they have to, they'll railroad you into one. And so it did help in the sense that I don't know. I guess maybe I didn't feel as singled out, and felt like first off, I might be part of a group. I always read about class action lawsuits, where there's a bunch of defendants, and that's kind of the first thing I thought of is if there was Michael Morton, and then 5 years later there was Troy Mansfield, how many others are out there that never got the chance to look at their file to find that there was exculpatory evidence, and they ended up getting forced into a plea. And so it did help in the sense of feeling like, okay, well, at least this wasn't necessarily about me. It was, this is what they do. This is how they handle things. So, like my attorney said, they got 100% conviction rate. So, once they indict you, you're done. They're going to get you somehow or another. They're going to get you. So, and that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did help quite a bit to see some of the evidence and hear about the way Ken Anderson responded in his court of inquiry about Michael Morton, and just the way he responded. Was like, oh wow, that's a mindset that is just beyond what I could comprehend. How could you ever think that way? That, even though I have exculpatory evidence that shows the guy's not guilty, I think he's guilty. So I'm not going to give over that evidence because I'm going to get him convicted. It's like, wow, how do you think that way? But he didn't just think that way about Troy. Apparently he thought that way about everybody that came before him. Whether he had evidence against him or not. His attitude was, you're going down. You got indicted, you're going down. So it did help a little bit in giving me, I don't know, I didn't feel so singled out. I didn't feel so alone. That did help. And I knew that ultimately this is going to get overturned. When I first found out in 2014. So it wasn't year and a half later before it actually got turned over. But yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember jumping up and down. My attorney's like, "Are you sitting down?" I was like, "No, but I can be. You need to be sitting down." So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me. Well, yeah, we'll do that later. How did it change your mindset around like a belief in government is good? The judicial system is good and trustworthy. How did that, when you found out about all the hidden evidence, did that rock your world? I mean, especially having served in the military. I mean, America Go.
Absolutely.
I imagine that was world rocking.
Yeah, for sure. My attitude has always been, that I love my country, and I believe that my country's, got my best interest at heart, and that the government is not out to get me. That was always kind of one of the reasons that I served. Not to mention that I have several brothers and my dad who also served, and so I was proud of my country, and when I found all this out, it did change my mindset toward parts of our government that is not for us, but is for their own career, for their own accolades, for their own advancement. But they don't have our best interest at heart, and that was shocking to me. It was new. I didn't really. I always thought if you're a prosecutor, my thoughts were that that's not a very high paying job for an attorney. And so that's like service in the military is kind of the way I always thought of that, was like, a police officer. It's not a very high paying job. That's service to your country. I take my hat off to a police officer. I always thank them for their service, even prior to, the accusation against me. And then, of course, until I found out in 2014 about what was hidden, it kind of changed the way I saw things. It was like, wow. And then I read some of the stuff the police said in my file. I was like, holy cow, that is so wrong. It did kind of change the way I saw the leaders, whether it be local leaders or of course, we can stand back and look at what's happening in our country right now and go, oh my gosh, it's happening everywhere. But yeah, it did change my outlook on things, because when I joined the service, it was because I wanted to serve my country, because I thought my country loved me and wanted my best interest. So maybe that's naivety, but that's the way I thought. Naivety. But,
Yeah. Do you have any perspective on that?
On how that changed our view of those in like the criminal.
Yeah. Or even if it's just a perspective shift of just the way the world works.
Yeah, but when we found out about the exculpatory evidence, it really, first, I think it really gave us some hope. Our attorney at the time, Kristen Eder, she was really like rooting for us, and I knew it wasn't just because she was getting paid. She was very excited about, oh my gosh, I'm gonna help this man, break free from this accusation and all that. But just hearing about what they were hiding and how they did that, yeah, it changed my view on things. And sadly, even like with the police system, how they handled, even when they called you in, and just like, why would you do that? And so, yeah, it really changed my trust. And it's sad that, a few bad characters can do that, but then that ends up like domino effect, And so that's why we need to make a change across the criminal system,
Yeah. Yeah. Lucian talks about how this kind of stuff affects not just individuals uh, and not just families, but all of society.
Yeah.
And I think he's correct.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Let's talk about post exoneration. Obviously, you felt the high of, hey, we're out of this. But yeah, do you want to tell me this kind of some details that have come out recently, specifically around like driver's license stuff, where you think you're past it all, and they still have their finger on control?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once we got, January of 2016, 22nd of January 2016, when we officially got the exoneration, I really thought that, I realized the internet's one of those things that once it's out there, it's pretty difficult to reel it back in. And so I realized that the story was out there and I couldn't do anything about that. But I really did feel like maybe there would be, that it was all behind me, and that I wouldn't have to address this anymore, and that it'd be done. And I think we moved here, I guess in 21, and I had to change our driver's license, and we went to the local DPS, who we had befriended the last time we were there, joked with everybody. We brought desserts to them, we're kind of weird people that way. And so, we came in to change my driver's license, and when she was doing the paperwork with me, she was like, okay, and so it says here that you no longer have to register as a sex offender. Okay. And I'm like, that should not, I mean, I'm, nothing against you because you're just reading what's in the file, but that's not supposed to be in there because I was completely exonerated, which means that the conviction was so far overturned that it's as if it never happened before. So you're not supposed to have that file. In fact, the state of Texas was notified, as well as the FBI, that they had to, dispose of their file on me. And so she goes, well, they do say that you're not having to register anymore, which, is basically like saying, well, you are a sex offender, but we're just not going to require you to register anymore. And I realized that that's just maybe just the administrative side of it that she could see, and maybe, I've always wanted to go up to an officer, especially even at church. I've thought about going to an officer and go, do me a favor, can you run my driver's license, tell me everything that comes up? Because I'm curious as to what does come up. I mean, I can do a background check on me and it's not there, but that's not the same as, them doing their thing, because obviously she was able to pull that up. And in fact, I told our attorney about that, and she was like, oh my gosh, we got to do something about that. That's crazy, So, but
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do about it. What do you do? I've filed for some information about that, and I have contacted the FBI to get my file to make sure that they don't have a file on me. When I was in the service, I had secret security clearance, and so I did have an FBI file then. So I have 2 FBI files right now, and so I have requested for them to send me what they have. So I'm not supposed to have two. I should only have one for the military. The other one's supposed to be expunged. So, but it is, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why when the court ordered them to, the state of Texas to let go of it, why did they not just simply let go of it? Why put a note in there saying that he doesn't have to register anymore, which again shows that apparently I've had to register in the past. Why would that even be an issue? Because it's supposed to be completely gone away with. So yeah, so a very difficult thing, but that old thing of Big Brother's watching you. I mean, what do? You try to fight them, but we're working on it, step by step. Yeah. But it was upsetting. I think we were both.
Yeah.
I think we were both pretty upset that day. Just I don't know. Part of it was we'd made some new friends, in a new place, and all the ladies in there were joking with us, and we were having fun. Even the customers were having fun with us, and then that happened, and it was like, wow, okay. It kind of took the wind out of my sails there. It was like, oh, what a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, the clerk was very kind about it. She, and she tried to, make light and change the subject a little bit. So, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
That she was gracious that way, but still, that
Yeah, she
hits
could have
you.
been snooty and
Yeah.
looked down her nose at us, and she wasn't that way. But yeah, but still, just the fact that the information was out there and it was
Yeah.
said out loud, in a room with people, it's like,
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Good. Okay. I don't need this anymore. Just in that answer, it shows how much grace you guys give people in dealing. You paint people in a way that is the most positive. And I think that's really neat. I was telling Brent on the way in that I think some people are thrown into the fire of adversity and they wither away. And some people are like hardened steel. And I think that's something that's really cool about you guys, is that, and something that honestly I couldn't ask for better subjects to tell this story, because I'm sure there are plenty of people that have been wrongfully convicted that just crumpled and wither away into alcoholism or whatever to numb the pain of it all. And so I think just having subjects that are so forgiving of other people's well, they could have been worse, is very, very wonderful, very nice. I don't know if this is relevant. It's a question that I feel like I should ask, and it's not on my thing, but I will. It is relevant. When you're dealing with this with a family, you have to make choices not just for you two as a couple, but as for the family, for the kids involved. And so the choice to homeschool, probably related. The choice to work together as a family and build that core unit as a family is related. I find it very fascinating that you guys never talked about it, because you did something that like you said, is instinctually just survival mode. Do you think that did you ever come out of survivor mode? Or do you think, are you still operating in survivor mode?
Not real sure I understand the question. Because what do you mean by survivor mode? For me, and I'm gonna throw it back to May 29th, 1994. So when I came to know the Lord, it changed everything in Troy, and I was an overcomer, and I was going to exemplify that in my wife, and for my children, and it doesn't matter what you say about me, And I put a 10 on everybody's head. I love everybody that I meet. I don't have a prejudgment of who you are, even if I know your past. I don't put you in a box and say, well, that's what your limitations are. I know what it's like to be put in that box, and so I don't do that to other people. And so I don't know if we call that survivor mode, but to me, it was an overcomer mode. It was that this is not going to define me, and that I am better than this, and I will show what it looks like for a man to face adversity and yet still be selfless in his actions to others. Because before I met Christ, that 6 to 9 months, a year and a half after the accusation, and then before I became to know the Lord, I was on a downhill spiral that wasn't good. I mean, I was self-loathing and drugs and alcohol, and I just, and then of course once I took the conviction, it wasn't good, and I wasn't heading in the right direction, and so whenever I came to know the Lord, He changed everything in Troy, and He did it that day. It was a moment in my life that just, I don't know. It was as if a light came on inside of me and said, "You're better than what they say you are. You're not who they say you are. So stand up. Be who you are. Don't let anybody determine who you are, but you be who you're supposed to be." So I went home and threw away a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have had in my home. I started walking like I was supposed to be walking, acting like I was supposed to be acting, loving my wife, loving my children, I need to be. And so it was an overcomer mode for us, for me anyway. I had that mentality from the get-go, We had to get past it. And the only way to get past it is rise above it. Otherwise, it defeats you. And if it defeats you, it defines you. And I don't want to be defined by this. So.
That's great. Yeah. Cool. It's really, really, really powerful. Because there's so many times that you could have just given up. And I think, finding that purpose in all the chaos of the world is everything. Because if we constantly live in chaos and if we're always playing defense, eventually you get overrun.
Sure.
And you have to give up. And you took it on to the offense. this is what I can do for my family in this way. So is a protective offensive mode. And I think that's a great way to what others, even me, that got to experience it, might have seen it as survival mode, was really was fighting against and rising above, like you said. Really amazing. When you guys have always done work with outcasts, do you think the conviction had anything to do with that?
Sure. Yeah. I know what it's like to feel like an outcast. I know what it's like to be seen as an outcast. I know what it's like for people to look down their nose at you and think you're nothing. And so those are the people that, need somebody to come along and lift them up, and love on them. And I'm not easy on them, but I love them, and help people, because people need everybody needs a friend. Amen. And so, I think the conviction did, and the way I was treated by the system and by others, it did draw me to others who are hurting, the disenfranchised, the rejected, the outcasts, as society may call them, or treat them. Yeah, it gave me a heart for them. I know what it feels like, and I don't want them to feel that. Yeah. It's good to have somebody in your corner. So.
That's good. I think it's so important to be hard on people too.
Absolutely. Yeah, tough love. Still love you, but still tough love. I'm not going to let you get away with, X, Y, Z. I'm still going to hold you accountable to what you need to be doing. But I'm also not going to judge you from your past and determine that you're going to go ahead and do that anyway. So I'm not going to trust you with anything. No, I trust you. Put a 10 on your head, and I'll treat you like a 10 until you don't act like one. And then I'll correct you, and then I'll put another 10 on your head and help you get there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Do you want to share about the work that you're doing with Dream Center? Mom,
Sure.
would you like to?
Oh, to talk a bit about
Yeah.
the Dream Center.
Give Dad a little bit of break on the vocal cords. Not that he needs it.
Yeah, we found out about, actually wanted to serve somehow in the community. And when we asked one of our pastors, actually, she's our pastor's daughter, she's a pastor, she said, the Dream Center really needs volunteers. So we thought we'd check it out, and just immediately felt like, wow, when we got the tour of the place and saw, what all they offer in this year-long program. Well, anybody that has some type of addiction, it doesn't have to be drugs, it can be alcohol, it could be pornography, it could be anything, food, and they need a respite type place. It's a free 1-year program, and it's Christ-centered. They go through teaching them, character and life building, and just help these people focus on something bigger that can help them through this adversity and turn their life around, so they can not fall back into the way in which they, maybe fell into a trap of whatever their addiction was, and it helps build them up and it as far as volunteering, we could go out there and we did. I think the first thing we did was we love to cook and cater, and they have a commercial kitchen. So we're like, we'd love to make y'all some food, and that was just
Cook a
we
nice
loved
home
that.
cooked meal.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, there's people there that are 18, and some people are in their 60s, and so a lot of them are not from the area. They don't have family. So it's good to give back.
Yeah, my attitude toward the Dream Center is, I want to lift them up and I want to encourage them and I want to help them, but they haven't read the Bible in a year, and I think that's wonderful, but just reading the Bible alone isn't going to do anything for you. But to help them change the way they think about life and adversity and difficulties. And so that seems to be my niche, my niche out there. I mean, it seems to be my relationship with a lot of the men is that they'll come to me with things that they're dealing with, whether it be their wife at home or whether it be their kids that they've, messed their relationship up with, or whether it even be something that's happening with somebody else that's living out there. And it gives them an opportunity to change the way they think about a situation. And one of my favorite things to tell them is that we don't know what that person's going through. So we know what you're going through and how difficulty you might be having with your spouse, but we don't know what they're going through. So let's, have some compassion. Let's have some grace. And it really is an opportunity just to help people to change the way they think about life, because we can get you off of drugs and we can give you a year of sobriety, but the truth is if we don't change your thinking, then you're going to get right back out there and the world's going to come after you again, and it's going to be really hard for you not to fall down that same path because you haven't changed the way you think about situations, about life, about yourself. And so that's kind of our biggest thing, is that we try to encourage people and help them to think a different way, act a different way, and whatsoever man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So we're trying to help men and women to think of themselves differently than they have in the past. Don't let your past actions dictate who you are, because you're not that person. So I think that's really important. But it's a great facility out there. They've got taken over the old juvenile facility that was in Jefferson County, and they've got a dorm with I don't know how many beds in it, but I think they've got 12, 13 guys right now and 7 girls, so 2 separate dorms, and they do a lot of good. One of the guys called me today and said that he was headed to an apartment complex with a van full of stuff that he can give away, and food and clothing, and he's going to a senior living place. So it's seniors that are don't have very much, and he wants to go to bring food to them, and it's building something up in that man that I can see every time I'm with him. He's changing his thinking, and he's becoming a different guy, and that's what the Dream Center is really all about. It's not just feed you some scripture and get you clean from drugs, but to help you live a different life and learn how to face adversity, because it's going to be out there. But if you think differently, you can deal with the difficulties of life. So I think that's our biggest thing, is we want to love on them and help them think differently.
Yeah. Love it. That's good.
We need to change that too.
Okay. Yeah, I think like 10 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that was great. Okay. I know that's really important to you guys about, when my entire life out, we always had vagrants coming and living with us, kids living with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
always helping out.
Well, that old saying of, that we love people because he came for people, you know. He came here to die for people. And so if he loved them enough to die for them, maybe we should love them too. And so I think that's really kind of been our attitude is we just love people. We want to love on people. Not everybody's lovable. Still got to try to love them either way.
A radical statement, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing to me. People don't care about others. But I'm your son, so I probably just got it from you. that care. Mm-hmm. The generosity of I don't know everything about who you are, but it's fine. I don't need to.
Right.
I can still like you. Or maybe not like you. I can still treat you with respect and kindness.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's one. You had to register on your birthday.
Huh.
Which, I mean, your mom was a Jehovah's Witness, so you should be used to that. So, Prince says, he was Jehovah's Witness, you only have one birthday.
Right.
And you celebrate when you die, because that's your second birthday. I kind of like that idea. But I'd love what would you do on those days to make that day not suck?
You're asking me. Well,
maybe we can start with Troy would have to register on his birthday. So.
okay. Well, Troy would have to register once a year with the county agent, right? And he had to do it on his birthday. And so it was like we'd try to go, I think at first you tried to go by yourself, and I was like, no. So we'd drive there as early as we could. We'd try to, we'd have to make an appointment, so we tried to get the earliest one, just get this over with. And I'd wait in the car, and, I was petrified even then. Like, I didn't trust because of what had happened to us. I don't know that I ever told you that, but I'd continually look in the rearview mirror. Is he going to come out? Because I didn't trust the law enforcement. But you would come out. And then we would go somewhere special, maybe out to eat, or dinner, or luncheon movie, or something that we could do. It wasn't extravagant, but, we'd try to make the most of it.
Yeah, I remember sometimes just knowing that, you would know that I was registering that day, and especially early on when I would go and I would like, I don't want you to have to go, I don't want you to have to deal with it. Let me just go take care of it. Which she would make sure that my favorite meal was being made. So when I got home, it was, let's sit and watch a movie together. Let's eat this favorite meal. Let's, so she made it to where it was tolerable, and supported me in loving me in that fashion, making that day an easier day to deal with.
Yeah, it was just like one more thing to strip him of dignity. Oh, yeah, it's like, come on. And, you think about, I mean, what would go through my mind is there are people out there that have to register because they are sex offenders. And I get why all these rules are in place. It's good. But
Can be.
yeah, it can be. But when you know, your husband is not guilty of this and the what it's doing to him emotionally that he doesn't let anybody see. Yeah, it's hard. It was very hard. And
Yeah, it was difficult because we had a particular incident where in group therapy, I had a guy who was convicted and confessed to, and gave extreme details in group therapy of 26 child victims that he had as a Boy Scout leader. He served 5 years probation and didn't have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. I, on the other hand, took a plea on a crime that I didn't commit, and they made me register for life. And it just shows the difference in having money. He had, I think he spent over $120,000 back in the 90s on an attorney, and that's the kind of deal they gave him. And, the system is so askew. But there are those who need that, and I think that young man needed those types of constraints on him. You got to go get your driver's license renewed every year. Then you have to bring that renewed driver's license to the county to show it to, an officer, and they would take your picture and they would take your fingerprints and they would do everything over and over and over again. And you'd have to sign. It was just very, like you said, very degrading. It was hard not to feel deflated. From the front door to the car door, I need to reinflate myself because they had taken it out of me in there. And so I needed to, I am not, you're not going to treat me that way. I'm not that person. You can say all that. You can make me do all that, but you can't, I'm not going to live my life in that defeated mentality. So, and by the time I got home, I was in better shape. Or if she was with me when I got in the car and saw her, that made a world of difference. So. That old song, I get carried away. So.
You guys could say, this will be the last question probably. It never is, but say one or many things to Ken Anderson, Paul Womack,
Michael Juergens.
Michael Juergens, John, Congressman
John Carter.
John Carter. Pick one, or all of them. What would you want them to know?
Who?
Yeah. Do you want them to realize the effects that they had on a family, on a person, on the mental toll that it takes, physical toll that it takes? Take your pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had anything to say to the district attorneys, whether it be in particular Paul Womack or Michael Juergens, Boy, I guess the biggest thing I'd want to say to him is, how could you? And why would you? And how many of you done this to before? And you're still alive. Well, forgive me, Paul Womack's not anymore. I understand he recently passed away. But, you know, you still have an opportunity to make right things that you know you did wrong. So, you know, why wouldn't you reach out there and go, okay, I know that I've got this case, and this case that I had exculpatory evidence, and, you know, maybe I need to come clean. And maybe these people aren't in jail anymore, but they're still felons, or you know, or maybe they're passed away, but their wife's still here, and their children are still here, and you could say something to them that, you know, that maybe would help. But you know, it's hard to put into words what you would, because I have to filter it through who I am and who I'm supposed to be in Christ. Because if I don't filter through that, I have some really negative things that I'd like to say, but it wouldn't do any good. For John Carter, who was the judge at the time and now a sitting congressman, I think the only thing I'd say to him is, you know, I wish you would have done your job. Because had you done your job, which is legislated for you to do, you would not have allowed me to just simply say, I'm not going to allocate. I'm not going to say what I did because I didn't do it. And the DA go, yeah, I'm okay with that, Judge. And you go, okay. Because that's one of the backstops to not allowing somebody to take a plea when they're not guilty. And I said I wasn't guilty. And you took my plea anyway, and you're supposed to make me allocate. You're supposed to make me tell you what I did, and I couldn't do that because I didn't do it, and I wouldn't do it. And instead of doing your job, which may have stopped this from ever happening, because all he had to do was go, if he's not willing to allocate, then I'm not willing to take this plea, and so we're going to trial. And by the way, let me see your case, because you're willing to let him not allocate. I'd like to see why you're willing to not have him allocate. Oh, well, there's exculpatory evidence right here. Oh, and here. Case dismissed. You know, so he could have done his job, and I realized that it was a good old boy mentality back then in Williamson County. You know, we get together and have, you know, tea and crumpets or whatever, and you know, bump fists with each other, and what a great job we're doing protecting our community. But, you know, I wish he would have done his job. I think that's the biggest thing I feel for him. And I don't know that John Carter knew that those district attorneys were doing that time, that hoodwinking him, hiding evidence. I'd like to believe that he didn't know that. I got to know him a little bit, and I'd like to believe he didn't know that. But if I had a chance to talk to him, that's what I would tell him. I wish you would have done your job, because you could have saved me, you know, from what these guys were doing to me. But Ken Anderson, you know, after all that he's done, I'd like to meet him behind a dark alley somewhere. You know, part of me feels that way, but the other part of me, you know, has such, I don't want to say pity, but my heart breaks for what he must inside of him go through, knowing what he's done. He may not let it be seen to everybody else around him, but how do you do what you did to Michael Morton? How do you do what you did to me? And how many others have you done it to? And so when you lay your head on the pillow, I can't imagine rest comes easy, you know, without medication. You know, but so it's hard to kind of put into words what you'd want to say to him. I'd love to hear an apology. That'd be nice. I'd love to hear one of them say, you know what, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that to you, and I'm sorry. And that would go a huge way for me. But I mean, I forgave him a long time ago. So, but holding on to it is, you know, like taking poison and wishing the other person to die. You know, not going there. So I gave that up a long time ago. Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything that you would like to say?
Well, what I would say to the prosecutors back then, and I don't know. I feel like most of them knew full well what they were doing. I mean, I too feel like, the Judge John Carter, I think they probably, I don't know that he was aware that all of this was going on, before it got to him. Like, so much of it was, these plea deals are so in the dark, just manipulative and wrong how they do people. I mean, even when we agreed with our attorney, we don't want to say, guilty. We're we're doing no guilty in a plea deal.
No contest.
No contest. And we believed that up until the point we got before in the courtroom when they said, well, actually, you're pleading guilty. And it's like, no, that is not what we're agreed on. So they, I would just like to say, I mean, I'm so sorry that they stooped to that level. And, we're, we're maybe the minority of some people that, have gotten through false accusation and conviction and plea deal gone wrong. I would just say, please look at, what you did. What example did you set for the prosecutors that are trying to follow your role model? Hopefully that's changing. And, but, I think they were power hungry, so.
Yeah, it doesn't, to me, and we can cut this out, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's a part of me that wants to say thank you. Because what you did to me made me who I am today. And I would never have been the kind of man that I am today had I not gone through the adversity that you guys put me through. And because of what you put me through, I'm a better man, and I love other people because of how much you mistreated me. I want to make sure that I don't ever treat people that way. And so, what you meant for evil against me, my God turned it for my good. So thank you. Yeah. It's an uncommon response, I think, but it's the way I have to look at it. I do thank the Lord that I went through what I went through, because it has changed who I am over the years, and it's made me a stronger individual, and I can withstand. God has showed me I can withstand a lot. Amen. I don't really want to be tested with more, but it's made me who I am today.
Yeah, that's really good. I have a friend that is on the verge of bankruptcy, going through a nasty divorce, and someone is trying to sue him right now.
Oh.
And so he's in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And he told me that he saw this thing on Instagram that changed his perspective on it. That maybe the reason that you're going through all this adversity is because without being in a difficult spot, you would have done nothing. And that resonated with me and all the adversity that I've had. Like, oh man, I just want to do nothing most of the time. But like this, I don't know. This is a big lift. This is a lot of work. We spent 2 hours setting up lights and this
At least,
a
yeah.
lot of work. I don't want to do this. I would much rather just like sit around and do nothing. That's within me.
Yeah.
But it's the opposite of their. I'm following their lead. I'm the counter.
That's right. I'm making my own path.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably got that from you.
Mm-hmm.
For you guys. Cool. There's no way we're cutting that. That was great. And I'm gonna get John Carter.
I saw that
Yeah.
on the treatment.
We'll get him. And we'll talk to him.
We'll just have some mercy.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yes. I approach everyone with I'm open to hear. I'm genuinely curious. If I got Ken Anderson, I'd be genuinely curious. What is your thinking?
Yeah. And that you never know, they might have a change of heart, but
Or-
have no idea how to convey it.
Or maybe there's some power structure that we're unaware of that they're falling under,
Oh,
and then it's a trickle down thing. You just never know what it might be.
yeah.
Well, it's unrestrained power, and that's really what it boils down to. And that's what the Fifth Circuit was saying about it. It's unrestrained power. We've got DAs out there who are, when they're in the plea stage, it's unrestrained power, and they can do whatever they want to you. They can lie to you about the evidence that they have. They can make you think that the case they have against you is just as rock solid as they can get. You're over here going, how in the world could you have evidence?
Right.
But, of course, nowadays we have DNA and we have, fingerprints and all that kind of stuff. But, in 92, they didn't have all that. And so,
Yeah, that's what it was just like, is this a joke? Like,
how can you say
how
that?
can you say that?
Yeah, we have a doctor's evidence that the little girl has been abused. And I'm like, well, holy cow. I mean, if you have a doctor's evidence that the little girl's being abused, you need to investigate that. You're wasting your time looking at me because I didn't do it. So we need to, yes, pursue it. But it wasn't Troy, and I kept saying that from the very beginning. But they were, we got the little girl detailed video of her telling us exactly what you did in very graphic detail of what you did and how you did it. And I'm like, okay. I can't imagine that you have that, but maybe she's describing somebody else because she can't be describing me because I didn't do that. And then come to find out, they had neither of those. They didn't have a video at all of her. Period. Not even an audio tape of her. And they had no doctor, no examination whatsoever.
Just
made it all up.
recantment statements.
Yeah, Mr. Mansfield didn't do anything to me, but yet they had fixated in their mind, you're guilty, and so we're just gonna, and that's that unrestrained power. And there has to be legislation that pulls that power back in and goes, you don't have that much authority over somebody, and you can't lie, and you can't misrepresent your case, and you can't hide exculpatory evidence. But currently, in our district, the Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, you can, and we're going to start changing that. And this documentary, I think, is going to really shed a light on that, and that there's going to be people in power that are going to step up alongside us and go, okay, we're going to help you make that change, because little old Troy's not going to be able to make that change, but I can scream from a rooftop till somebody sees me, and they can make the change. But then again, little old Troy might be able to make a change. You never know what Troy could do, He could do all things.
Yeah. Well, cool. We're going to talk a lot over the next couple of days. So
Okay,
let's call it quits.
stand up.
You
Yeah.
still love us?
Praise the Lord.
Do I still love you?
Oh, wait, let me get it first.
Now, let me get this off first. I don't want to mess this up.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Is it all right for me to do this now?
Yeah, you're all right.
You're really good, Nathan, asking those questions.
Just don't know what I did with it.
No, it's in the couch cushion.
Here, this is gonna. Okay, 1, 2.
Watch it.
Okay.
Right above you.
All right, Allie, you need to move.
Was that dog there the whole time?
Yeah.
Holy shit. You know, at one point I thought she was crying. No.
That's good.
Lord have mercy. Yeah, we're good. That couch is not.
Yeah.
It was not sold for its comfort. Yeah, I can tell you that.
It was made before they started making comfortable couches.